Hi, my name is Janine Hernandez, and I am a survivor of domestic violence, physical, verbal, emotional, and spiritual abuse. I am creating this video so that I can share my story and have an uncomfortable conversation with everyone. I do want to give a disclaimer that some of the topics that I am going to talk about is for a mature audience only. So I'm going to start with I met an individual back in 2016 through a mutual friend and a multi-level marketing company that we were both a part of. This individual's name is Alberto Sosa, and he lives in New York City. We remained friends over the next couple of years, and in 2022, we rekindled our friendship somehow through social media and just started to have normal daily conversations. Um, I had shared with him that I had been in a narcissistic abusive relationship in my past, and he had shared with me that he as well. So we initially connected on that front. Um, our daily conversations eventually became nightly FaceTime calls, and our feelings for each other started to grow. So he finally made the decision and he flew out to Arizona to visit me for a weekend. And as you can suspect, everything was amazing the first time that I met him. We had a great time. We were connecting. I didn't see any red flags. One of the things that initially made me attracted to him was his belief in God. I knew that I wanted to date someone that believed in God, that believed in Jesus, that had a spiritual, relationship with God. And he portrayed that. He, at the time, or he still is, a sign language interpreter at All Saints Priory in New York, Ridgewood, New York. And what made me, one thing I loved about him was that he would pray over me. He would pray over our relationship. We would pray over every single meal. He knew so much about the Bible and taught me so many things. And I'm going to be quite honest with you, he is the reason why I got closer to God was because of him. But I did start to um experience certain things with him. At the beginning, there were a lot of synchronicities. We did feel like this was something that was orchestrated by God on both ends. But I started to experience spiritual abuse from him. And what I mean by this is I don't, so I would like to call myself a Christian. I believe in God, I believe in Jesus Christ, but I am a non-judgmental person. I love everyone, regardless of their religious beliefs. And I have, acceptance for people and the different belief systems that they have, whether it be reincarnation, etc. And he did not like that. A lot of times he would scream at me and he would say, in cap lock, sometimes through text, and he would say, who do you believe in? And he would say Jesus Christ in cap locks. And I'd be like, Jesus Christ. Um, he would tell me that some of my belief systems were demonic. Um, Sorry, I get a lot of anxiety. He would tell me that a lot of my belief systems were demonic, and he would sometimes tell me that I was going to go to hell if I believed in something differently than him. And I would always come back at him and say, well, when I die, the person that I need to speak to on my judgment day is God, not God and you, just God. But he would continue to judge me and make comments about me and my religious beliefs. And I would point out to him and I would say, you know, your clients that you work for are in Christians and some of your coworkers are in Christians. So why don't you yell at them too about their belief systems? Why is it that I'm the only one that gets yelled at about what I believe? And he would tell me that he didn't care about them in that way, so he didn't care about what they believed. He wasn't going to get into that conversation with them. At the beginning, when we met, he was very chivalrous, which I loved. He would open car doors for me, buy me flowers, take me out to nice dinners. He was doing all of the things that he was supposed to do as a man on a materialistic sense. But when it came to emotional and spiritual, I experienced abuse and even physical. So I'm going to share what started to happen. And really, I started to see patterns of him getting upset and screaming and yelling and vulgar conversations. A lot of it was when we were in the car. Sometimes he would have road rage against other drivers, and I would have complete panic attacks in the car, asking him to please stop. He would weave in and out of traffic, screaming at people. And then, like I said, he was very vulgar towards me. That was the start of like the relationship. By the third month, by the third month, we had an incident where he tried to get into my phone, and it caused, he was trying to see like text messages between me and one of my really good guy friends, which I have nothing with and never have. But he was insecure or jealous of our friendship, and he was attempting to get into my phone. And he told me that I needed to get the fuck out of his house and put my luggage by the door. And then he grabbed my phone, and then he grabbed me and threw me on the couch, and we were like tussling to get my phone back. Um, and I remember that I had grabbed my book bag. I have a book bag and a purse. I grabbed my book bag and I put my laptop in it. And I was getting ready so I could leave. But in the midst of like me going to get my phone, by the time I came back, my laptop wasn't there anymore. And I didn't even notice it. So I called an Uber and I left to a friend's house who also lives in New York. And as I was leaving, he came outside. I had bought him a men's devotional book. He grabbed the men's devotional book and threw it at my face inside the Uber. And I was able to escape. I went to my friend's house. I later found out that he actually stole my laptop. He kept it. So, anyways, the next day, my friend had to meet with him to get my laptop. And this is when he started to like manipulate me. He would blow up my voicemails, my emails, my social media, apologizing, crying, saying that he is so sorry for his actions. And it was very confusing because for the first time ever, I was like, oh my God, this man actually feels bad for his behavior. He said he was willing to go to counseling, do whatever he wanted. I will say that I did speak to his aunt, and his aunt told me that this is not the first time that he has put his hands on a woman. He actually put his hands on his ex-girlfriend, and she told me he got arrested for that. She told me run. That is what she told me. And I unfortunately did not listen, and that is my fault for not listening. But he's a very good manipulator, and he would tell me that his aunt is lying and that she doesn't know. So we continued to stay together. The abuse continued from there. It was very verbal, so he would call me things such as slut, smut, scum, skank, hoe. And when he would abuse me, he would tell me that it was all my fault, that he would blame me and tell me that I deserved everything that he said because I was disrespecting him. A lot of the times it would be anything that would make him upset. And honestly, a lot of the times I just wanted to have an emotional connection and conversation with him, and it would blow him up. Then the physical abuse started to get worse. One of the times that I went to visit him, he got upset with me again. I don't remember why, but he locked me in his room. He would do this often where he would hold me hostage. He would hold me hostage in his room, lock the door, and I would be in there for hours. And he would tower over me. He's bigger than me. So he would tower over me, scream at me, put his fist in his face. He would push me, pin me down onto the bed, um, like push me up against the wall. At one point, he grabbed my 50-pound luggage and threw it at me. It's really hard to talk about this because it's just hard. It's very difficult, so bear with me. But a lot of every single time I would try to call the police and he would take my phone, smack it out my hand, and then he would scream at me with his hands in his face, and he would tell me, if you call the police, I'm going to lose my job, because he is an ABA therapist. He works with autistic children, and he's also an ASL interpreter. He works with the deaf community. He told me that if I were to report him, that he would lose his job and it would be my fault. And so he would always hang that over my head. And I was so scared to do anything or say anything. There was one time that I did call the police, but again, he like hung up on them. So there was another time, it was the same scenario. He held me hostage in his room. He was throwing things, he was pinning me down. And then I finally was able to like get past him through the door, but then he locked the front door of his house. And so again, I'd had to like, I kept threatening, I'm gonna call the police, please let me go. And so I was able to get out of the front door. And so when you go down the stairs from his house, there's a front entrance, which is like another door. There's like another two doors downstairs. So he's standing there and he's not letting me leave the front area. At this point, I left my luggage upstairs. The only thing that I have is my purse and my backpack. And at this point, I am telling him, please let me go, let me go, let me go. And he's not letting me go. He's holding me hostage. So I don't know what it was, but I remembered that there's a back door. So I ran this way backwards and I went down through the basement, and I went out the back door and I started hauling ass to the downtown area, which is like 6 blocks from his house. This was 5 days after he had back surgery. Okay. So he ran after me, ran after me downtown, and I'm running, and at the same time I'm trying to get an Uber. I had to literally run into the Uber and like close the door while he was running after me, and the only thing I had was my purse and my backpack. And a lot of times when this would happen, I would leave my luggage, like I would leave everything. I literally was in fight or flight mode trying to get out of this situation. I would have to pay for new hotels just to get out, or go to a friend's house, buy a new flight. Like the amount of money that I spent trying to escape this man is crazy. And every time he would apologize, he did start to go to anger management classes, but anger management classes do not help if you are not doing trauma work to understand why you treat people this way. I would I would love to say that I was the only one that got treated this way, but the reality is that he treats everyone this way. And I've witnessed him verbally abuse his aunt through text message. Again, he verbally and physically abused his ex. He abused me. I have seen him in public scream and yell at people. So I can't say that I was the only one that experienced this. We also went on a cruise trip that I had won. It was a free trip. And on this trip, he started to scream at me in the room. And I told him, I said, if I was a man, you wouldn't talk to me in this way. And he proceeded to put his fist in my face, and he said, do you want me to hit you? You want to be a man? You want me to hit you? And then he like cornered me. He like backed me up and cornered me outside of the room onto the balcony. And he's like, you want me to hit you? He kept threatening me. And so I finally got through him somehow, and I went upstairs to the guest services and I reported this. I specifically told them that I feared for my life. I feared that he was going to throw me over the balcony, and I asked them to separate me into a different room. And they told me that I had to pay $3,000 for that, which I did not have. And they eventually, like, they were like, sorry, like, we can't help you, you guys need to be on your best behavior. So I went back to the room. He starts texting me and he starts telling me that he's going to lose his job. And so I told him, I don't worry, like I told them that you didn't physically hit me, but I did tell them that you were threatening me. So the security came and took us upstairs, and they made us go into a room, and they were recording us, and they told us that we needed to be on our best behavior. They were going to remove alcohol from our room tab, and if we continued, then they were going to remove us from the trip. I felt that that was so unfair because I would have loved to see this cruise line separate us into two separate rooms and gotten two separate statements, because I would have told them that I was fearing for my fucking life at this point. And I don't know why they didn't do that. So the whole trip I am walking on eggshells, just hoping that this man doesn't hurt me anymore. And this was the first time. This was the first time that I went to go and report something, and I actually had someone listen to me, and what they did was they turned me away. So that happened. We had one other incident, and it happened the day before my birthday. I had told him, you can come visit me, but you need to be on your best behavior. I will not allow you to yell at me, scream at me, curse at me. I want to have the best birthday of my life. And it was a mess. The day before, I'm sorry, 2 days before my birthday. I don't even know what we were arguing about. I can't even tell you what it was. I do remember, actually. I had told him, I said, why is it? And this was just a casual, normal question that I asked him. And I said, why is it that at the beginning of relationship, men will like open doors and do all of those things, chivalry, but then as time passes, they stop? Is it because, like, do you think that as women, we just have a high expectation? Like, it was just a normal conversation I was trying to have him about male and female. And he went crazy. He started screaming at me. He started yelling at me. And he did the same thing. He locked me in the room. He was holding me hostage. He wouldn't let me leave. This time he was like holding me by the elbows, and I had like bruises here. And cursing at me, towering over me, pinning me on the bed. At this point, I started to have ideations of unaliving myself. I didn't want to be here anymore. After 3 months of the relationship, the first 3 months of the relationship and the abuse that I started to have, I started to think that if I wasn't here anymore, then my life would be so much better. I wouldn't have to be miserable anymore, and I wouldn't have to live in this hell anymore. And so, the day of my birthday, I started to self-inflict harm. At one point, I like grabbed a knife and I like cut myself. I just didn't want to be here no more. The only thing I could think about was my son. But that weekend, I started to self-inflict. So, and the reason I did this is because I would get so frustrated. Like, all I wanted to do was leave the room. I just want to leave so you don't yell at me. But I started to self-inflict, and I would punch myself like this, and then I would pull my hair. And again, I did this because I couldn't see myself hitting him or doing the things that he was doing to me. I couldn't see myself doing it to him. He was bigger than me, so I would harm myself. And I also felt so stupid because I'm like, why do you continue to believe this man? Like, why do you continue to believe that he's gonna be better when he's not? Um, anyways, at that point, I started to scream at the top of my lungs because I'm like, if you're not going to let me call the cops for help, then I'm going to scream until somebody comes. And I started to scream and scream and scream and scream and scream. And then he was like, I'm not going to lose my job over you. So he opened the door and let me go. And I did. I left. We were at my Airbnb. So I came home. It was the worst night ever. I came home. I was so afraid to go to the police again because he would always blame me. And I came home, and then the next morning, which is now the day before my birthday, I go back to the Airbnb to clean it. And I told him that he needed to leave. And so he took an Uber to the airport, and the whole day he was going off on me in text messages. Like, at first he was screaming, yelling, and just verbally abusing me. Eventually he flipped to like, I'm so sorry, please let me come back, I want to take you, I wanted to go watch a movie that weekend. He's like, I want to take you to a movie, like it's your birthday, I want to spend it with you. And I'm like, no, I was very firm on, I told you if you come you're not going to abuse me, and that's exactly what you did. So I made him go home. I stood on that, and he went home that night. And the next day was my birthday, and I spent it by myself, no friends, no family, just me, just loving me. And I felt like finally I escaped this monster. But it continued, he like got on his best behavior, and he's promising me the world. He's promising he's going to be amazing. Um, and then we got back together. So I want to take you to um when we got back together, I started to create really, really strong boundaries. My counselor told me that I needed to be very, very like firm with him. And so anytime that he would raise his voice at me, I would tell him a couple times, lower your voice. Do not scream at me. Do not yell at me. If you continue to yell at me, I'm going to hang up. And so I would. But me hanging up makes it worse because he would like blow up my phone, my text, my email, everything. And at this point, I was already wanting to unalive myself. I was already getting verbally abused, so I started to have reactive abuse, where that is where the victim starts to react to this. So he would like scream and yell at me, and I would scream back, like, I'm not going to allow you to continue to do this to me. I think I broke like two phones because I just like would hear him scream at me, and I would just like smash it. Like I just didn't want to deal with this anymore. And I continued to self-inflict pain on myself. I continued. Um, it got really bad for me, and I had to call the hotline twice for help because I didn't think that I could do it anymore. And it's just bad. And forcing boundaries on this man made it more difficult. At this point, the spiritual abuse had stopped, but it was verbal, physical, and emotional. And he would tell me whenever I would react, he would say, see, you're crazy. See, you have mental health issues. And he would say, see, you just have low self-esteem. And he would tell me, he's like, you make me do these things. You disrespect me. So this is the consequences to your actions. And I never understood why I was the only one that was receiving this behavior. Yeah, some other people did too, but I'm like, why can't I be treated nicely? At this point, I'm like begging him to treat me right. So we had a trip scheduled. We had a trip scheduled to Greece. He planned a whole vacation. I made it very clear to him that I did not want to go on this vacation. I am in the middle of paying off my debt. I'm in grind mode. I just really want to be debt free. He's like, don't worry about it. I'm going to pay for everything. We're going to go on our dream vacation. So he booked us another cruise to France and Italy. And then we flew to Athens, Greece, and Santorini. Um, my gut was telling me, don't go. Do not go on this trip. He's verbally abusive. I was miserable at this point. But he kept telling me, let's go. I already paid for everything. So, okay. We went on this trip. 2 days into the trip in Barcelona, he put his hands on me at the hotel. The reason why was because I told him we got to check out by 12. And he's like, checkout's at 2. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's at 12. That caused an argument. And um, in this situation, he did the normal thing that he always would. He would hold me hostage in the room, not let me leave, pin me down, hold me down, push me, things like that. Scream at me, tower over me. This time he got in my face and he grabbed me like here by the temples, and I had a mark here. Um and then I just was not having a good time. Like I said, this time my counselor was telling me to create boundaries with him, and I actually started to express things. Like he likes to control things, like even down to like the type of drink that I have, what I would wear for our photos. And so I would start to express, no, I don't want to do that, or no, I don't want that, or no, I'm not going to do that. And it wasn't to like argue with him, but it was more so like I'm standing in my own truth. I don't want to do that. That made it even worse. Um, so we didn't have a good trip. So we get to Athens. And I remember the reason why we got into an argument was because we had a whole itinerary. We were going to go do a bus tour. We had a yacht trip, and then we had a photo shoot that he had planned. But we were at reception at like 10 o'clock at night, and he's entertaining the reception guy about some package or something. And so I told him, I said, why are you entertaining the guy? We already have 3 days full of things that we're doing. That set him off, and it caused an argument. And I told him, I don't like how you talk to me. The next day I told him, I don't like how you talk to me. We went down to the reception, and I'm like, okay, let's just go on this bus tour. Um, but we went down to reception, and he gave me an attitude in front of the receptionist, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not going anywhere with you, and you're not gonna like disrespect me in front of a receptionist like this. So I went back to the room, and that was the worst thing that I could have ever done. We went back to the room, and it just started an argument, and so I started to record him. I recorded him, and so he started to record me, and in the video he is screaming, yelling at me, and just going off for like 5 minutes. And then I told him, I said, you abuse me just like you abuse your mom, you abuse your ex-girlfriend, you are an abuser, and I'm not putting up with it anymore. And at one point in my video, he gets in my face and he starts screaming, and then the video cuts off, and he started to put his hands on me, and he actually made me bleed from my hand. And so I grabbed a napkin, and I'm like covering it up, and he's like, oh, what happened to you there? I'm like, you made me bleed. And he's like, I didn't do that. Yes, you did. Like, I have marks. And at this point, I'm messaging my friends, and I'm telling them that he's being very aggressive with me. But I wasn't telling them that he was putting his hands on me. So I told them, it's $1,800 for me to get home. I can't afford this. I just want to make it out of here alive. So I'm just going to be a yes woman and say yes to everything and just go with the flow and walk on eggshells just so that I can get home. And that's what I did. Over the next 3 days, we actually had a great time because I was just doing everything that he wanted me to do. And then he proposed to me. We had to climb up a mountain, the side of the mountain, on top of a church, and he proposed to me. And I already knew that he was going to propose to me because my friend at the time told me. So I had 3 days to prepare, and I told myself, if I say no, this man will probably hurt me really, really bad here. And so I prayed to God, and I was like, God, what do you want me to do? Because I know that you don't want me to be in this abusive relationship. But if I say no, I'm gonna get hurt. So please, can you help me? And I told God, I'm like, please, can you answer for me? Because I don't know what to do. So when he got down on one knee, I got quiet. I didn't say anything because I was having a conversation in my head with God. And I said, God, what do you want me to say? And God's like, say yes. So I said yes. While we were taking photos, he kept telling the photographer to make sure that my hand is like edited and smoothed out because you could see the bruises on my hand from where he made me bleed. And for a second there, even in the engagement video, I asked him, I said, are you sure? Because I never believed that an abuser can actually truly love someone. I never truly believed that he loved me. And we went out and we celebrated and we texted family and we FaceTimed our friends and we told everybody. And then for a second, I actually believed that he would be a good husband. I gaslit myself, and I was like, maybe this could work if I just shut up and if I walk on eggshells for the rest of my life and I just do whatever he says, maybe we could have a very, the happy ending. And so I did that. And within 2 weeks of us coming home, he was already verbally abusing me. One of the last things that he texted me, he said, stick this up your whatever ass, and like I called off the engagement. Got engaged October 22nd, 2023, and I called off the engagement October 26th, 2023. Continued to talk through December. I was still helping him. He had evaded taxes for 10 years, so I was helping him with that because I was still people pleasing. But December 26th, I told him, please don't contact me again, or I will put a restraining order on you. I wanted nothing to do with him anymore. And I finally returned the ring on January 24th. And I returned it to his friend because he asked me to return it, and I didn't want it either way. But even in me returning the ring, it was a whole deal. His friend was calling me and saying he wants you to call him, he doesn't want it, and like just trying to manipulate me. And like, but I had him blocked. I'm like, I'm not calling him. And if I go pick up this ring, I'm gonna pawn it. I'm gonna make some money off of it. So be very careful about what you want me to do. So they kept it. And a month later, he moved on to his next victim. One of the last things that I told him was, you are an abuser. You abuse your mom, your aunt, me, your two exes. You're going to abuse the next woman. I promise you that. I know that this is how it's going to end. And a month later, after I returned the ring, he moved on to his next victim. I also want to mention something that I forgot, but we had an incident in the car once leaving a concert where he started to scream at me and yell at me and verbally abuse me. And I was recording this too. I have it recorded. And he was swerving the car, like swerving it. And I kept telling him I didn't feel safe. I was trying to open the door because I felt like if I opened the door and I throw myself out, that would be much safer than being in the car with him. And me and he told me that he would throw me out of the car. And that night when we got home, I like locked myself in the spare bedroom just so that he wouldn't do anything to me. So I make this video because I need to come forward and share my truth. But most importantly, I want to protect the next person. I want to protect any other woman that is going to go through his abuse. I also want this to be made aware because he does work with a vulnerable population. He works with autistic children. He works with the deaf community. And there is no telling what a man like this with this anger is willing to do. I do not trust him. I do not feel safe with him. And I want people to know the truth of what happened to me. I don't think I think being in a situation where I wanted to unalive myself and having that person manipulate you and tell you that the reason why they put their hands on you and they pin you and they hold you down and they hold you hostage is because of that, it doesn't make sense. If I were in those shoes and I had a friend that wanted to unalive themselves, the only physical contact that I would have is to hug them and to tell them that I love them and to pat their back. That is what I needed in that time, and he didn't do that. He would make it worse. So my name is Janine Hernandez. My abuser's name is Alberto Sosa. He lives in New York City in Queens, and this is my story. The church, All Saints Priory, we did email them 3 times. Twice through email, one through their website, and we have yet to hear from them.